Uh, if I have to talk about the incubation programs in NSRCEL, we actually work with multiple sectors. If you look at the right bottom, you will see Impact Orbit. That is the program that I am actually representing. So we work with for-profit and non-for-profit models which have some tech-enabled solutions. We also have another vertical, climate smart agriculture and circularity based. We also have a women entrepreneurship program where we are partnering with Goldman Sachs, Cortex, and we are actually catering to the larger scale programs. Then we have emerging sector vertical where we are actually focused on deep tech, climate, sustainability, mass mobility, mobility, EV, etc. But these sectors keep on changing as per the sectors evolve. These are actually contextual verticals. So what I mean by contextual vertical is that we work mostly with early stage ventures who have initial revenue or pilots. We have other two programs such as Launchpad, which works with idea stage ventures, and Velocity, which work with the later stage incubation. Now I'll talk a little bit about what impact orbit is. So till date, we have worked with 13 cohorts. So we actually started the impact orbit vertical in 2017. We have worked with partners such as Dell Foundation, Emphasis Foundation, Ford Foundation. Now we are working with Capgemini, Pernod Ricard, India Foundation. So the uh, program which Capgemini is funding, I represent that. If you want to know more about Impact Orbit, you can always check the details in our landing page. And also there is an impact report we actually published last year. The QR code, you can check it out. Now, I'll talk a little bit about what Impact Orbit Tech Vertical is. So in this program, we are partnering with Capgemini. We work with social sector ventures who have tech-enabled solution, who are working with the bottom of the pyramid or the grassroots level. Who is it for? It is for businesses which are impact first ventures, which have digital tech enabled solution. As I was saying, we work with ventures who are early to growth stage. We are actually sector agnostic, which means that we work with all type of sectors, but mostly we get ventures from education, livelihood, skill development, agri and allied sectors. We are also business model agnostic, which means that we work with for-profit and non-profit ventures. What can you expect from this program? So for selected ventures, we give grants up to 15 lakhs. We help you in crafting value proposition and business modeling. We also help you in identifying alternate source of funding. We will make you funding ready. We'll make you impact metric ready, pitch ready. And also, when you are getting incubated, you will be getting access to our network and impact ecosystem. Currently, our fifth cohort is going on, which has 25 ventures incubated, both for-profit and non-profits. Our next cohort applications are open, which is a dedicated non-profit cohort. Our incubation period is for a month of 6 to 8 months. If you look at our alumni, you might recognize few of them: Miti Cafe, Launch Girls, Vigyan Shala, Ekotum, to name a few. Opengrad, who is also in the panel today. This is the QR code for our applications. I'll be putting up the link in the chat box as well. If anyone want to check it out, you can check it out now. So again, welcome to the webinar, Leveraging AI and Data for Better Social Outcome, a non-profit perspective. I'll give a brief introduction to the panelists. We have Shahid C O from Opengrad. Am I audible?
Yes, Ramesh, go ahead.
Yeah, we have Shahid C O from Opengrad. He is the co-founder and CEO at Opengrad. His main focus is media, PR, partnerships, fundraising, growth, and he's a marketing expert. Before joining Opengrad, he led growth initiatives at two consumer app startups based in US. Then we have Aarti Krishnan from Sattva Consulting, where she heads India Partner Network, a knowledge and engagement platform which was developed by Sattva Consulting that empowers nonprofits and social enterprises across India with resources, insight, strategic connections to enable better internal capacity and impact. Then we have Atharva Joshi, who is Senior Product Manager at Civis, where he leads development of technology-driven solutions to make public policy making more inclusive and accessible. Then we have Archana Pillai. She is a mentor in residence at NSRCEL. She is a social auditor by practice. She mentors social sector organizations in thinking strategic clarity, monitoring and evaluation, program evaluation, data collection, and analysis. She is also the moderator for the webinar. Archana ma'am, over to you. Uh, all the questions and queries we'll be taking up at the end, and we'll be answering as per the timing. Please put all the questions you have in the Q&A session. Archana ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh. Good evening to everyone. Welcome, panel. Thank you for taking out the time. Everybody who's listening in, Ramesh has set some context to what this webinar is going to do and the positioning of it. Let me also add, one of the reasons we keep doing these things is just to, also communicate to the world what we perform. I mean, he said we've been consistently, I think this is going to be the third year where we're going to be the #1 incubator in India. And we've been hands down humble about it because it tells us what we're supposed to do. So, it's not like we're marketing ourselves, but we want to share what we do. And Sattva has been a partner for very long. Everybody else here has worked with us, right? So thank you for putting this together, also the team. We have Civis and Opengrad, both of them, we worked with them. Opengrad has been in our cohort. Antara had worked with long back when she started Civis. So that was the context we brought them in. And then we said, we should talk to Sattva and someone from Sattva should come because we work so closely with you. And, you work with the ecosystem as well. So what we're doing here is, like Ramesh said, we are looking, of course, to attract a new cohort, but bring in a new pool of people who we can work with. But we also want to talk about some of the challenges that we are beginning to see and we have faced as we've worked with the cohort. So like the context of this, right? So we're saying tech, leveraging tech and AI. So I like the context of leveraging something because we are saying, okay, how do we make it happen? If you saw what Ramesh said, by the end of the cohort, you will have the following things ready. You'll be pitch ready, you'll be alternate fundraising ready, you'll be impact metrics ready. That's our goal, right? So of which one of the things is also to introduce organizations to the idea of how to use tech for better performance and efficiency. So that I think is the idea of this conversation. The second piece of this conversation is also to probably help, showcase the work of our ventures. I mean, that is why we have Opengrad and Civis here. And they talking about their own journeys. So we're going to focus on how their journeys in tech have been. I mean, their independent journeys in tech have been, and what are the challenges that have been there. And Aarti is going to bring in a very interesting perspective because they've also been studying the nonprofits through that platform that they have. And she's going to probably bring in a little bit more of, what are the real challenges that are still being seen with, infrastructure being ready or data being available. Today, we're at a point in time where I don't think access has been so much of a challenge. In fact, today morning, we were writing a proposal where we removed the word access, saying, what are we talking? Access is everywhere. Like, where is access an issue, right? So we can talk about those things. And that is why it has to fall in place in that fashion. So we are, like Ramesh said, this is a Capgemini run impact incubator that we're looking at this point of time. We run others as well in climate and rural tech, rural development. But for this one, we're saying we're looking at ventures in the social space, which would like to use and leverage tech in some form, which are either doing it already or which want to do it and experiment when they come to us. So we are like, I think questions that come are like, what are we looking at, right? So like he said, we're looking at an organization early stage, which wants to use some of these. And that is why we have founders in the room who will tell us what did it take to do that? So how difficult or easy it was to start that conversation on technology. So that is, I think, the purpose. I must also add that I've been in this incubation ecosystem with NSRCEL for the last 8 years now. And as much as we are product centric, we're also a lot founder centric. So we always say entrepreneur first, because we have seen all our ventures go through changes. And we like that, right? So we kind of create a space where experimentation is possible. Yesterday, we were talking about how much of a safe space we are considered to be and things like that. So those things for challenge and design are there. So having said that, we will get into this conversation. And I think the format, this is for the audience, the format that we have in mind is, we have about maybe less than 1.5 hours now. I can see 15 minutes up, so maybe a little less. Maybe 75 minutes is what we have. We will have a conversation for maybe 60 to 70 minutes, or we'll see how it goes. Please send your questions in to Q&A. If you have a question for program, Ramesh will answer that. If you have a question for a specific panelist, my request is to put the panelist name so that then we can direct it. I will pick up the questions as and when time permits and how the conversation is flowing and bring it to them. So that is how we will follow this up with, and we have a flow of conversation where all three of them will be participating in this exercise. So having set the house rules in place, let's start. We will, you heard a brief introduction of each of them, but what I thought we should do is, we should let them talk about their social sector journeys, because I think it's important all of us talk about the work we do, but what about our own journeys, right? So I want to talk about, the three of you, maybe a little bit of your own journey into the sector, how you have seen it, perspective of how it is changing. And then also a little bit about the work you do at your org. Not necessarily tech, just generally define that, and then maybe we can move on. All right. So we'll start with you, Atharva. Welcome. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. So my name is Atharva. I am an engineer by training. I completed my engineering back in 2021 from VIT Pune. And post that, I stayed in computer engineering, right? So it's a element that if I say that as an engineer, I was more product centric first. So whatever problem I was given to solve for, I used to understand what is the tech thing that we can do, build on it, right? So my journey on social sector started with Civis, and my understanding, I was interacting with Antara and what she was trying to build before I joined Civis, and understanding what exactly made her choose the problem statement that we're trying to solve for, right? So I'll just explain what Civis does. Civis is a public platform that allows citizens of the country to respond to public consultations that are put out for government from the government, so that seeking public feedback, right? So before a policy is put out, there's a 30-day period that people are allowed to comment on the policy draft, right? So if there are any recommendations from your side, or if there are any clauses that we don't agree with, right? We have that kind of a superpower that enables us to talk to the government and claim certain things that we do not agree with, or we want to recommend to the government on certain policies, right? So this platform, we understand that we're trying to reach at scale, right? And when you talk about a non-profit, there are two things that I feel that are very much important. That is efficiency and scale, right? So Antara definitely came from a place wherein she understood that we need a day zero kind of a tech initiative. But I understand tech requires some kind of funding. We need a process in place. We need a people-centric kind of an environment to build tech. So that's where I was able to help and understand what exactly needs to build, what exactly we need to build, and that's how my journey in the social sector started. But started one interesting aspect is that the first few weeks of me interacting with Antara was to understand how she runs the program without tech, right? And understanding what is the exact moment we tap into the technology aspects and then start building and scaling our program to the larger regions of the country. So nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Atharva, for saying that. I think it's important to also say that the work they do is very difficult, right? I mean, all of us as citizens of the country are supposed to engage with law. I mean, when the law is put up on the website or as it's being deliberated in Parliament, it's available for all of us to engage with. But when Nantara started this work, she felt it was needed, but we don't have the time to look at it. Like we might have, like if currently we're talking a lot about data protection, privacy, and all of that. But how many of us are willing to learn, right? So she actually ran these as a program physically, and when I met her in 1819, was like, okay, what do I measure now? I'm running these workshops, I'm running these consultatives, and how do I tell people I'm creating an impact? What is impact? Impact is you and me participating. How is it going to change? Well, we can give suggestions. So it's difficult work, and then the work itself was complex. So I think that Atharva underplayed the complexity and the difficulty of the work, but I've seen Antara struggle through that. But and I've seen how she's grown. So I think that investment in, you said it nicely, tech as a support platform, not that going away, right? What we do is still getting people together. Tech helps us do it better. That's how that's how I would put it. So thank you for saying that. We'll go to Shahid. Shahid, let's hear about Opengrad.
Hi, so I'm the co-founder and CEO at Opengrad Foundation. So what we do is we help underserved youth access high quality higher education. We do this primarily by skilling them in foundational 21st century skills plus focused entrance coaching. We do this all through a volunteer-led model where students who have already cracked entrances from Tier 1 colleges, they put in their hours to train and mentor these students. So it's a completely community-driven initiative. We are right now active across the country. We have 3 state projects running in Tamil Nadu. We have a project in Chhattisgarh as well. And yeah, so that's a brief about my organization. I think about me, I finished my MBA from IIM Indore in 2022. Before that, also, I was involved in education in lower capacities. I was running a small center back home. I ran an edtech from college dorm for about 2 years, things like that. So that's my background. In terms of how we got into tech, I think there are 2 sides how I see this. One is for internal activities and internal work. So initially, when we started off, it was just me, my co-founders, both of us, all 3 of us are just trying to take care of all the activities. So we leveraged tech initially to ensure we were working at maximum capacity. So using all the high-end AI tools and all the stuff so that anything we do internally, all of our internal work is streamlined, spot on, and easy as possible. I think that was how we viewed tech initially. And right now, once we have scaled and we have operations in multiple places, we have slowly started incorporating tech in multiple other activities, basically in our volunteer management systems, content production, training of these students using AI is something that we're very bullish and we're actively building on. We also have our own in-house platform and things like that. So yeah, that's about my journey in tech.
And very interesting again, and this is very traditional, the idea is very traditional nonprofit that get financial resources for people who need it. But it is not as simple as that, because also categorizing, classifying, there are enough of support that's available, but when they had to select, especially for higher education, where is the gap? What is the pathway? When we met them initially, we said, oh, this is not going to be something that's going to become very big, because we were a little skeptical about whether they could get everybody supported, or get everybody moving. And then the program changed a little bit, saying that, okay, it's not like all of us getting financial support for everyone. It's like getting them capable of maybe accessing other channels of support. And I have seen them grow. So, that again is a classic example to everybody who's listening, of how in our ecosystem, and I'm sure, these people have worked in other ecosystems as well, how the opportunity to experiment has been there. And I think that's what we'll talk a little bit more about later. And I think that, Shahid, comes from your own entrepreneurial experiences. So you were not just running Opengrad, you're an entrepreneur at heart, right? So an entrepreneur at heart is always an entrepreneur, whatever it is. So I've never seen you guys come back and say, oh, this is a problem. Both Shahid and Sahil are forever smiling. I don't know how they do that, but I think thank you for coming and participating. Thanks, Aarti, also for being here. Aarti, over to you to tell us a little bit about what you do at Sattva and your own journey.
Thanks, Archana, for having me here. Hi, my name is Aarti Krishnan. I work with Sattva Consulting, but just to add to Atharva's and Shahid's background, entrepreneur at heart, for sure. I think the bug has bit me long back. But just to give a context of what I currently do at Sattva Consulting. So Sattva has basically created a platform called India Partner Network. It's a digital platform predominantly catering to the non-profit ecosystem and several of the other mission-driven organizations, a mix of even the social enterprises, where they are looking for certain kind of support to build in their internal resilience and capabilities to better drive impact agendas. And they've not really had the opportunity to kind of grow their program, the organization at the scale at which the programs are growing. So focus has been more on the program, but organization needs handholding. So how do we bridge that gap? So that's the main purpose of the platform. It comes in with the different kinds of mix on resources in multilingual format and even multi-form format to access them either in the form of videos or downloadable templates and guideline and checklists. Alongside that, getting an opportunity to connect with different kinds of subject matter expertise on core functional areas of an organizational setup. And how do we kind of bridge that gap so that those continuity of these conversations keep going? That's the main purpose of the platform. And as of today, it's been a year and a half that, kind of been driving this initiative. Over 2,400 organizations actively participating and engaging on the platform. But apart from that, a little about my previous journey before Sattva. It's come together, if I just reflect, it's more than 20 years of work experience. Started with mainstream research and consulting, where supply chain has been very core to the work I have done. Alongside that, I think there have been several opportunities where I got to work with the consulting firm. You have a lot of these pro bono projects. It gives me an opportunity to get a little bit of the non-profit sector feel. But I think one of the projects that allowed me to see an intersection of how sustainable models with benefits to the society and in deploying tech and data at large really can transform. And I think that's what was my pivotal moment. So I kind of shifted into the sector. Back then it was not so cool, somewhere around 2005, 6, around that period. But I think kind of I've been stuck around with that love of this intersection, wherever there is an opportunity to bring in data and enablement of any kind of a technology, which is driving impact, not necessarily always a scale, but it is really meaningful and sustainable at large. As far as work concerned, where tech is applied, so going back to my supply chain deep down in my DNA, the way I see it, it's either an input, process, or output. So even in my previous entrepreneurial journey, where we are trying to identify how do we really adopt tech, it could be somewhere where it's just kind of bringing in a way to bring in some of the key elements so that you can digitize the work that you're doing much more simpler. A lot of data is still being collected on paper. Can there be a way to fix that? So it's more of an input solving. So input enablers. And predominantly tech is, come to think of it, it's actually an enabler for anything that we do. Even the tech that we see around today, they're all driving something much more larger than the technology itself or the product itself. So that's one way. Second is from a process standpoint, you want to automate some things. You want to kind of streamline some of your existing internal processes for better efficiency. It could be just the way you collect meetings. It could be something, where you are trying to kind of draw a pattern on the data that is coming in. How do you kind of tie all the various data points together over a longevity or maybe a cross-sectional data? How does that? So some of those elements where process can be built using tech. And finally, in my current avatar, the way I see it, it's an output. The platform itself, what I'm kind of building together today, it is an output for the sector at large. What does it solve? What are the various elements it can address? And there are things which it can't address. So how are we kind of keeping a cognizant eye on that? And it just, this kind of a breakdown, going back to, like I said, the supply chain, it allows me to see the role tech can play in all my various initiatives and efforts that I've put together over the last several years of working with the sector at large, contributing using tech and data.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very nicely put. I think the entire supply chain piece is very interesting, right? So input, process, output, and how tech, I think that's a very nice way to think through that. It's not like tech is a separate piece of work. It is something that either integrates, finds its own space within what you do, and it's not something that you pick up separately or later. So let's do this, right? Let's for the purpose of convenience, and I think a lot of questions are also coming about. I mean, I work in these rural backgrounds. I don't really need to do tech. I mean, I don't have tech, so but just browsing through chat, I saw some of this. So I'm just thinking maybe we will just quickly go ahead and define what each of you thinks tech entails. And it is not a perfect, complete answer, but from your own experience, like, tech entails this for me. This is what tech meant, or this is what, like you just said, what tech could do. Maybe what tech means for you when you look at it. I mean, let's not say AI alone. Let's say tech in general. So, Shahid or Atharva, either of you, to say what is tech for you. Atharva, I think you should go ahead.
Sure. So from my understanding, I look at tech as a process and a product. And when you couple this, it is for people, right? So these three aspects basically form an ecosystem that we see tech enabling, right? When I talk about understanding what tech means and how it drives all these things, so I look at it as from a perspective that, for example, if I have to hire someone, what usually we do is we try to find the best person for the job, right? But I take an approach of understanding what's the best job a person could do. So in that cross-sectional meaning, that is something I look for tech into. So that it is a combination of processes, it is a combination of product that you're trying to build or a solution that you're trying to build, and people using the solution.
Okay, that's a very interesting interface again. So you're saying we pick the process which is common, but it is about the people and the product that, or the solution that you're offering. Okay, that's a very good interface, but it is still very intervention centric, right? It's very whatever you're doing centric. Yeah, great. Just to follow on before I move, and is there any underlying theme that connects these three in your head, or is it just three, like in a triangle, three axes or three verticals or three?
The foundation is basically understanding the impact or understanding the efficiency that tech brings into all these things together. But majorly, these three things play an important role on defining what we're trying to achieve, right? So it is also a part of foundation in that sense.
Right. Thank you. So I think that's important, right? So you're saying those three components, but they together, you're saying what is the impact each of it can create. So is tech making it function better? Let's take an example of why do you wear a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, right? So these days, everybody has a patch that people are wearing. Or everybody's wearing a smartwatch these days, which is telling you what is your heart rate and all that. The intention is, I mean, one is that, of course, it can be horrifying if you get angry and it starts beeping, but the whole idea of it is that it is getting you sensitive to health patterns, right? So how you use the data, like the other day I was talking to someone who said, I wear a CGM but I don't look at it. I'm like, and what is the use of looking at it? Not it's I have it but I don't have time to see it. So it's like saying, the reason I say I'm using this example because a lot of orgs which want to invest in tech, but they're like, okay, we don't know what to do with it. Because somebody said we should have tech, we'll go get it. Or that there's a cohort that is selling tech, so we should go buy it, right? So that's, I think, let's see these things as well. We'll clarify that also as we go through, and we'll see what examples you have. Yes, Shahid, what is tech for you?
For us, I think primarily very specific to what we do. I think tech is our distribution. Tech helps us reach the kind of people we want to reach at the most effective way with the resources we have. So that's the core of tech when we started off, and it's still the core of our distribution.
So tech for you is probably the solution piece itself, right? So it is your solution. So your solution anchors in it. So
it helps us. The whole idea of democratizing this access of resources, I think it will not be possible in our case without the distribution that tech lets us lets us do. So tech is
as simple as that. So anything that helps you do your work better is tech. Okay, that's nice. Aarti, you already said input process, but is there anything else you want to add on what is tech then?
Yeah, I kind of even resonate with what Shahid just said. In some sense, tech can be a means to an end or the end itself, but it needs to have something that it's solving at large. Is it's making something better than what it was earlier? Could be connection, could be even delivery, could be anything. But in essence, it's basically an enabler of what we currently do. Can we do it better because of tech? And it can come in any format. It could be integrated, it could be atomic, doesn't matter, but it should really make that efficiency indicator. You should be able to see a difference in the way it kind of delivers for you. I think I just want to kind of summarize that.
Nice. I think that this piece is very well together to what we should look at, right? Because we're saying, of course, we can get into challenges, adoption, other stuff, but we're saying that we want to talk to nonprofits about how should they look at, especially early stage nonprofits who are interested in working with the incubation ecosystem and who probably have not thought tech yet, or who have thought tech but say this is far away for me. Now, if the three of you had to think through this and say, okay, if you are an early stage startup and and you've probably been in these situations where you've either evaluated projects or had to make decisions, what should your point of decision be? Like, is it saying, oh, let me get tech? Of course, all of us understand it's for efficiency, it's for reporting, it's for accountability. Yes. But what is the first point of, what was the first port of call that you would take as a nonprofit if you had to start getting into tech? And you can use your own examples or something else that you've heard of when do I start using tech? Like you said, day zero, right, Atharva? So a thing like that, what does it mean? When do I start? Like, I mean, I come from the monitoring and evaluation space, and constantly people tell me that we don't have money for it. We'll do it after 3 years. And I'm like, you should start it even when you start dreaming about the organization you're building. And they're like, there's no money at that point of time. I said, it doesn't matter, but you still have to think of what process to create, right? You can't say that I'll get the money and do it. So where, like, if you have to choose an example to say, if you're a young organization, 1 year, 1.5 years old in the business, when should you start thinking tech? Shahid, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think for internal purpose, I'd say like Atharva, day zero, for sure, day zero, because you're
Not day -1.
day -1, obviously. But like the idea is that because you're at this, even if it's a non-profit sector or any, end of the day, it does not matter, because even if you're a for-profit founder or you're a non-profit founder, you have a problem, you have a solution, and you're solving it. And given at this time when there is so much tech tools out there and stuff, it matters that how much that you use it to solve this. If you have all those sources, you should be evaluating what can help me solve my problem better. So internally, from day -1, you should look at all the resources that you can possibly put your hands on, and then that can help it out. In terms of your stakeholders or in terms of your beneficiaries, I think the right time to look at it would be slow. I wouldn't say it's never a good idea to take care of, like, build the most advanced tech platform to help out your beneficiaries, because especially in non-profits, you're dealing with a market that does not have a demand. You're in most cases driving the demand. You have to go through the full education and awareness of why they should be, if in our case particularly, if you're telling students that you should go and appear for these entrance exams, because then you can get to a college, you can make use of all the 12 years of schooling that you've done. We are telling to these students who have not even had the slightest idea that they should be doing this. So we can't go ahead and tell them, okay, now you should sign up on this platform, do this, that. So implementing it on ground takes a lot more thinking. You should think through. But the idea is that just because it might not be the right time to implement it for your beneficiaries, it does not mean that you shy away from it. I think it's always necessary that you have a look on all the tech tools out there, because whatever I've seen is there is a trend that for-profit sectors take on all these tech resources early on, whereas non-profits in general, shy away, and they're like, okay, we'll take care of this later on. But I think it's shifting as well, because even with like a lot of funds and grants that are going into AI developments and things like that, it's definitely shifting. I think that's the overall trend we should go for, because I think we should not shy away, and we should have tech from day -1, because there's a lot of organizational efficiency that can come in. I think that should not be ignored at all.
Yeah. So you said two aspects to it. One is that as you build out the organization before the product itself, that there is a need to get tech to probably get your systems in place, get your team in, building, and then the product itself would be something you build out gradually. In your case, because the tech is the solution, you probably built it out at multiple stages. Right. Yeah. Otherwise, within the case of Civis, I don't think, I mean, tech was used for different purpose earlier on. Now you're using tech as a very primary engagement model, right? So tech is, so that way, would you want to talk about how Civis's journey? I know you've been new to the system, but how that journey evolved and how Civis approached tech at different stages. That would be nice to hear too.
Sure. So I think there's a background of me joining Civis in this aspect as well. Just I'll highlight that aspect as well. One thing is, when I say day zero, I meant Antara didn't allow me to write code for the first month, right? She wanted me to understand what exactly we do in that sense. So I was attending every meeting on understanding what our beneficiaries are, what people have to say, what are people facing problems, on understanding on adoption of the tech. If we try to put in an idea saying that, will you be able to will you be comfortable sharing your opinion on a web platform, right? We started from there and understanding are people really cognizant on doing that as well. One interesting aspect when I say building tech is also, I think when I spoke to Antara, she mentioned that in your resume you had mentioned that basically in my engineering I had few contributions to the Mozilla browser, right? It's an open source browser, right? So she mentioned that, you know, why do you have to build everything from scratch, right? There are a lot of open source repositories that are very similar to what we're trying to aim, right? Again, when we started understanding what exactly we need to build, I sit down on looking at almost 100 plus repositories on GitHub, understanding what open source tools are available to that can be an immediate fix to what we're trying to solve for, right? Understanding, can we do a proof of concept using these open source tools, deploy it somewhere and just see and experience people iterate over the tool, or maybe understand how people are using that kind of a mechanism, right? Or this is a workflow basically we're trying to establish via our system that is there in the tech, right? So this is something that we started on tech aspects. Now what we have tried to do is we have taken in leap on understanding how tech first solutions can be built or for the problems that we're trying to solve for, right? So before, if there's a problem presented to any of us, and second thing is again that people that are using the tech, right? So what happens in a non-profit is that you have a limited amount of people resources as well, right? So you want to make sure that we promise them something that they can take away from a time perspective as well, right? So if you bring in tech, you also save some kind of a time, right? So the opportunity cost is a long-term thing at this point of time because you're trying to save time and also trying to make it efficient, right? So with a limited number of people, how do you position yourselves to adopt tech better, right? So from starting, so earlier we used to do in-person meetings that were wherein we used to write on meeting notes of the meeting, understand what people have to say and stuff like that, right? So now what we started to do is we have tried to do more capacity building within our team so that each member of us can do in-person meetings on its own and understand how you can use tech. So we record a lot of pieces and we try to understand if AI can help us transcribe, it can create different visualizations that are easy to understand for the government, right? So we have seen that every problem that we encounter now, we try to understand, is there a tech-first approach that we can solve for? We get a small team that allows us to do a POC, a proof of concept. So I pull in few of our comm team members, I pull in a few of our governance team members to understand what exactly the problem is, and does the workflow at least make sense? And then we look for open source solutions if they are something that we have built for. If no, then again we start to understand what are the integrations that are readily available and build a POC out of it, and then move on to impact evaluation of the POC. Understand, have a solution metrics of what we were designed to solve for. Have we achieved that using a POC? And then look for scalability, and then look for diving into building the whole technology aspect of it. So this is the workflow.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that was very detailed, but very nicely put, right? So, I mean, for those who are listening in, especially for nonprofits or social ventures who want to participate, I think both of them, Shahid and Atharva, have been talking about one. And I think what I sense through both is one, as you build these things, you have to take risks to experiment. So one of the things is you don't really know how to do it. So tech, basically, I think, and maybe, when Aarti speaks, she can probably help us a little bit on that, is also a little bit of a safe haven to make mistakes with. You probably can experiment better if you have tech support systems or you use tech. One is experiment, see whether it's adding value, report whether it is or it is not, and then move on as well. So, you can do that quickly versus going into the field and correcting. And I think both these organizations have done that, saying, okay, we need to do this, but let's quickly use tech and see. So if it's just taking notes, if I'm listening and coding and, instead of individuals doing it, now everybody's trained, there is a metric and everybody can do it better. So the scale of the work improves, right? And also, and the very interesting thing that you said on visualization. So one of the reasons why we need to use some of these is basically so that communication becomes better. That is when you're, saying the same thing. If the same workflow, if I had let Atharva put up a chart, probably everybody would see that flow, right? So that's where we are when it comes to these things. Aarti, having heard these two now, and you've also, I mean, the IPN actually looks at a large pool of resources and things. Where do you think nonprofits fit on a spectrum, or do you see a classification of saying, okay, how much risk they're willing to take when it comes to tech? Where are they? Are there any patterns that you have been seeing because you've also sat at the ecosystem level?
Sure. So one is, I'm also going to look at beyond India Partner Network, what are the things we have learned, having interacted with all sizes of organizations and geography, there is a general element of overwhelmingness as a feeling from the nonprofit sector when you think about tech. This is something, it's like an alien word. I don't know what it means. How should I decode this? That's problem number one. Second is, if I have to kind of, put it very differently to make it resonate powerfully enough, it's as good as a little matchmaking exercise, come to think of it. It should be to an objective that I, as a nonprofit or a social enterprise, trying to achieve. Does it align with those goals, directions, the mission, vision I have? Is it having a kind of a resonance there? So somewhere like the point which we just discussed a while back, all of us are agreeing that you start with day zero. The question also is how much of this tech can solve, how much of this requires tech and people. So I'm not disregarding that you should not look at people at all. But yes, if tech can make people's life easier so that those problem statements that you're solving for can be much more magnified and stabilized over time, tech is something, it's a non-negotiable in those cases, particularly in today's state. Given all of this, another observation that kind of comes in is when we hear, so coming from a capacity building lens. So organizations, when they think about capacity, they're always on top of keeping an eye on compliances, maybe, and to a certain extent, your impact reporting, because you are working with a donor, you really want to make sure everything goes out clearly. Tech does not significantly emerge as an area to assess as a capability that you as an organization have or not. What is it that you as a leader and your board feels about tech? What are the areas where your next in line has an understanding about tech? What kind of training support system you need? And most important of all, is there a mindset to have a little bit of a tinkering element? Are you willing to kind of just play with the tech? And tech is nothing else but beyond, creating a very small set of problems. It could be a small database. It could be something like absolutely a very specific process you want to test and experiment. So we talked about experimenting. It's about doing it frequently and habit building. Unless and until that happens, without the habit building, it tends to fall through the cracks and we go back to our traditional methods. So somewhere, when in my previous avatar, when really small organizations, when you're working and hand-holding them, one of the biggest challenges, you need to know the difference between digitization, and digital transformation. So for example, you are still collecting a lot of ground data in paper. Great, we understand there are problems, but is there a way that tech can solve? Are you as a nonprofit leader thinking about it? So the moment that question comes, and this is a pattern that we have seen, the question that comes to a mind of a nonprofit leader, you start looking for answers in the peer network, or maybe you look for people who can advise you on that. And that's where you break this barrier of overwhelmingness and you start thinking about looking for that matchmaking. Which tech solves for? Is it open source? Is it something that I could partner with a vendor? Is this something I build internally within my organization? All of those combinations. Now, that kind of a understanding from a mindset, knowing your capabilities, knowing your broad objectives, and knowing the difference between where you are as an organization in this pyramid, if I have to call of, are you digitizing all the content that you already have, put it in a format where tech can process it? Second is how much of digitalization, basically the processes that can improvise within your organization. And transformation is, I would say, it's like a leap of a journey for an organization. But it starts with knowing where you fall into your current objectives, the capability, the team capability to handle that kind of a workload, and the kind of peers who can come together, network of advisors, or the sources that you might want to reach out to build that capability inside. And a constant willingness to tinker and play, that mindset is a very critical thing. So it's about going small, going frequent, and getting into a habit forming behavior. This is like an ideal state, if I have to say, a nonprofit needs to go down to having a successful. And this is absolutely possible. It's just about staying the course and making sure that you are kind of figuring out who are the right partners. You may not crack the right solutions early on, but you will get there. It's about the journey and staying the course. That's important. But we do see normally organizations do fall off right when the understanding of capability. So they want to take a lot. They love the idea because there is a donor influence or maybe somebody who's keen on taking tech as a way forward. but you just don't know the roadmap from there. How do you take that forward? Those questions do not get answered because you're not looking the inside out view of capability, trainings, team support, and the various levels of infrastructure that you have to create to have that enabled.
Thank you for saying that, because I think we're also saying, you said tinkering capability, all of that, right? So the question early stage was that what do early stage founders look at? What you explained is most of the skills that we are saying founders, early stage entrepreneurs need to have. So not just for tech, for everything they do, whether it's a fundraising channel, we say the same thing, right? So we say, okay, you know what? So it's like the DNA there saying that, well, you're looking at funding channels, you're probably not looking at one source, you're looking at alternate sources, you have to figure out, or whether it's even product design, or, your delivery or solution. There also these things happen. So just to follow up on that, I mean, Shahid, do you, I mean, as Aarti was speaking, were you able to see how your journey has been on this? Like, the challenges you had to face as you decided to use some things, the opportunity cost of some of this, saying, okay, should I do this first or others? And where you had enough conviction, or you were not sure also that, okay, this is going to work, tech will work or not work, but we're going to do it. So in that journey of your own capability, your ability to tinker and experiment, do you think you can map some of those on this and share it with the audience?
Yeah, definitely. Before I start, I think one another point that I missed that is very crucial about how tech can help us, especially in the nonprofit sector, is the confidence that comes with having handy data. Like tech can give you like data in points. So we're a very new organization, but when we went and pitched to the government and stuff, we were able to pull in numbers extremely quickly because we had it all handy in sheets, products, and whenever they asked how are we tracking this, we're like, yeah, it's all real time. It's when they log in, it gets like. So that is also, I think, one thing that nonprofits in the sector has to keep in mind, because the end of the day, your reporting, your impact metrics are going to be the drivers of your scale and your growth. Even if you want to work with donors at high scale or governments, everybody wants to see how well you're tracking that. I understand that a lot of metrics might not be easy to track, but it's still that the kind of effort you're putting in to ensure that each step is, monitored is very crucial. And I think tech is like tech is the steroids that an organization needs for all those stuff. So that one. Second, yes, definitely. I think in our overall journey, we came in very ambitious, trying to build a lot of things that were very tech first. We wanted to that was one thing that we were also a little confused in our heads initially, that we were like a tech first organization. Right now, we are very clear that we're a community first organization. But the idea was that we would build AI chatbots that would help the students learn on their own. They will take the action. And that was also primarily because of our disconnect with the in-depth disconnect. We did not have that end-to-end clarity on who our beneficiaries are and what is the kind of day-to-day lives they had and things like that. So those are the things that we got to know only after getting on ground, maybe running a batch. And so initially we wanted to build everything on tech. We wanted to reduce as much human touch as possible. This was how we started off. We wanted to hire developers and lead the whole product phase. We wanted the product to be first developed and then go and take it to the consumers and things like that. But so quickly enough, I think in 3 months down itself, two things that came into us was one, getting good quality tech team is not that straightforward. The idea that you need to have very good devs or very good people who understand tech inside out. It's not just people who can build it. There is a lot of things that you might not have to build. There are things that you can just mix and match a lot of existing tools and get products out there. This nobody will tell you. If you hire a developer, they will never tell you that you don't need me. You can just like club in 4 or 5 things and do it. None of the developers, if you post a job, they are not going to tell you this. So I think we went out, we spoke to a lot of people who have built in the space, and then they gave us like prioritizing was the word that kept coming up. It's that we have to prioritize what features we want, what are the features that the users want, and putting our feet inside the user's shoes all the time, and then thinking like that. So initially we went full tech. We were like, yeah, we'll build this, we'll build that, then we'll give it to the user will use it, and they'll crack the entrance, and then yeah, happily ever after. That was how we initially viewed it. Then once we understood that the users are not that tech savvy, or there is that human touch even in our teaching that is very, very crucial. So that is also something that so then we took a step back, and then we went back into building the community and partnerships in more depth, so that we have a clear understanding of the users. and then we studied them, and then now tech for us is mostly a tool that helps marry all of the stakeholders we have. We are at this journey where we want tech to be one of the stakeholders and assist in some of the key areas as well. But currently, the role it's playing is marrying all the different stakeholders and getting all the data, all the services in that right point. And I think this is a journey you will, for any problem that you're solving, I think you have to get hands-on, and only then you'll understand that do you really need tech or as the key lever, or is tech going to be a tool that helps you marry your on-ground volunteers, your teachers, your government officials, and then it just lets you do all of that. I think to share our mistakes, we were a little, we did not think through our users in the first 2 months. But I think that is crucial, and that'll come. If you're doing good work, you'll understand that end of the day, yeah, it doesn't matter to build all these. Just give them what value.
Right. Thanks, Shahid, for being so open about it. I think it's especially for orgs which are out there and listening, they should understand that many of these things, when Shahid is saying, these are not as fun as they sound. They have been difficult decisions to make. When the new start, I mean, they come with tech backgrounds. They are both educated elite. They come from elite institutions. So for them, some of this was like, oh, this is the problem, let's just go fix it. Very often social sector has that, right? I know better than everybody else. And then you realize, boss, on the ground, things are very different. So, Aarti, I want to go back to our conversation yesterday where you said when you guys were looking at some of this data and, especially rural entrepreneurs, you said that, well, no, it is not availability of some of these access to some of these solutions or possibilities, right? One is, as he said, do you really need to go and build everything from scratch? No, yes. But even when I give it to you, are you willing to take it up? So I might run a training program and maybe some resources come and then you're doing it, but am I willing to adopt it? Am I willing to run with it? So would you like to tell us a little bit about where you see, especially grassroots organizations which are not normally using tech or not easy for them in their solutioning at this point of time? Where do you see, based on the data you've run through, where do you see their challenges are? And maybe as you speak about the challenge, if you could tell them how they could also overcome it, like, where you've given them feedback.
Absolutely. So one, just want to call out, see, I'm a huge fan of grassroots organizations. They are actually kind of covering those gaps which a lot of organizations really cannot make. So they are super when it comes to the clarity on the mission and the objectives. They perhaps have nailed it in many cases is what we see. They're very strong on the community building. They understand how those patterns work. So that's something I feel a gap where tech comes to a challenge which becomes a little bit of a tightrope walk is tech requires an effort to build a process. Like Shahid said, data is the cream of tech. If you don't get the data, the tech is not really going to solve for or answer in certain cases, not always, unless it's it's something that is insightful. Yes, you need the data. Now, when as a community person, if you're very active on the ground, keeping an eye on the tech, it can get challenging for small organizations because one, they are super tight on the resources. When I mean resources, I'm talking about financial constraints as well as even people to kind of run those various setups. Super simple setups also can get challenging because they may not have that kind of an infrastructure from either coming from funds or their own investments. So it could be connectivity problem. It could just be the way, frequent power outages. You just couldn't update the data. Combination of all of those. So there are technical, at a macro level, roadblocks are there, which are still not officially resolved, particularly when you go deep into the, communities which are perhaps tribal communities or remote locations. We're hoping the way that current technology of the country is kind of forwarding with, big conversations on Starlinks and all, perhaps some of the answers might fall into place, but it's still a challenge, open challenge. Second is, area where we strongly have observed is when it comes to grassroots organization, and I'm again going to emphasize on this, it is a leader's agenda. A tech cannot be a successful journey unless until leader is sold into the idea of this is really transformative. They need to be able to see that my team needs training. They need workshops. I have to figure out a way. And there are ways to make even open source tools, which could be easy to deploy, but it requires a little bit of early stage handholding, training, and that is a time investment for sure. Unless and until a leader is sold into this, it can get challenging. And there are other practical challenges which are connected is a lot of grassroots organizations which are very field heavy, but they are not the headquarter operations heavy. They might have just a 5 or 6 member team, and they have to put together a lot of roles to play. There's a time today where we want them to be top on compliances. They should be able to market themselves and brand themselves very well. They should be active on social media. Just too much happening as a pressure on them, which is an understandable status, but it doesn't seem to go away because the world is moving towards enabling them to become organizations which are having these functions very properly set up. So it's quite a bit of a pressure on them to deliver on the ground, maintain these organizational robustness on all the functional area. And that does bring in some kind of a resistance to change, because I'm so comfortable as a staff of a certain nonprofit to do my current role. Now you're asking me to do much more than what I'm already doing. It's going to either dilute my work or it's going to take me away from my work, which I'm not very happy about. So that resistance for change comes in also to a certain extent, which can become a roadblock, and which is where the leader, the board, that makes quite a bit of a contribution to make this like a open pathway for them to make time, make this part of their daily agenda. And tech, I mean, I strongly feel, given all the various kind of engagements we have had, it needs to get to a stage where it needs to be habit forming. Because COVID has moved us forward. We really cannot go back now. The times have changed. And it's important for nonprofits to fully leverage this opportunity today, as long as we have a control on understanding these tools. As it goes further ahead, it might be much more difficult and a long gap to kind of chase. But it's important for them to make time and bring this into their daily agenda. So just like how you take stock of all the various transactions in a microfinance or maybe the agri produce that you've collected, can you also see how much of effort to make sure data has come into place? Is the data consistent? Are the very simple things like rows and columns marked properly? And all of these collectively over time can be a solution. So broadly, I think it's about getting the leaders buy-in, getting the capabilities internally through workshops and trainings. And last but not the least, I think a donor has a huge influence to play. The grassroots organizations somewhere are somewhat relatively deprived of that benefit or that vision of how tech can really enable the work they do. If donors can translate to them, I think that will be a great push forward for them. It will really propel them to become a little more serious about tech adoption.
Thank you. I think the habit forming piece is very interesting, right? So what you're saying and like we said, founder first, you're saying it has to be founder led, the change that is looking at technology. Atharva, just a different set of questions, right? I mean, a different lens to this whole thing is, I know in your case, I mean, in Civis's work also, tech and data both have played a very central role in your reporting of impact. That is what you do, right? So one is we're saying tech as an enabler, as a function to run the oil. I mean, it's like a cog in the wheel running the machine, but tech and data, and if I start adding another component to tech saying data is also your way of, Shahid said that a while back, of you telling the world how good you are and what you do, right? And Civis has done that. How can you give us some examples from your work of how better quality, consistent data, periodic data, and analytics? And I know because Civis reports still come to me. So how has that, helped you gain more support in your work from the partners, but also helped you change the donor view of your work? And in that case, I mean, tech and data, where is that angle coming in and how did you guys deal with it?
Yeah, I think there's a very interesting aspect on understanding what does data mean to us, and maybe for each organization it may mean different things, right? So when I talk about data, we are in the domain of lawmaking, right? So it's more about transparency and trust, right? So when I say transparency and trust, we need to understand that we are a platform that caters to the government as well as the citizens, right? So we act as a bridge between these two, and trust there is very important, right? So whatever we put out on our website, I think we summarize laws so that it makes easy for people to understand what the law is, right? So we need to understand that we need to be very neutral at this point of time, right? So we were in a space wherein we had hired law volunteers or students that would help us summarize a lot of laws and put out in a very neutral manner in a summary way, right? But we understood that as the GPT advent came into picture, the volunteers that we were seeking help on started using GPT bots and understanding how to summarize all these things together, right? So now when you understand the impact on the org, we understood that this is something that we would not publish on our website because it has some kind of a bias, right? But then it was also a learning to understand, okay, how we can empower these volunteers to basically use these bots, use the AI, the admin AI, and understand how we can simplify their work. So maybe for them, if it used to take, like, say, 3 or 4 days to summarize a law, it takes like half the time to do that, right? So that is something that trust on the data side is something that we look for. And second thing, I believed on transparency. So I think we make sure that whatever reporting that is done on an open source tool, and it is accessible to any donor at a real-time instance, right? So when I say that, if anyone, we have our key matrices, right? So few of them are like how many citizens that we engaged in the month, how many laws that we published in a month, right? So all this information is in the dashboard and accessible for everyone to look at, right? So this allows that transparency curve to build on. And when we talk about data, procuring the data, procuring the laws, because these laws are put out on different websites. So we need to be on top of understanding what all schemes and workflows we have devised into. So this is a learning pattern. We have iterated it amongst different state governments. We have iterated it amongst different central ministry bodies and understood how each ministry takes a look at publishing laws, right? So it's more on having being on edge of all these things together, being on top of all these things together, and understand how I can get data frequently. The veracity of the data is maintained. We get high quality data, and when we translate this to insights or visualizations for the government to directly look at what people are saying about these laws, it is easy for them to understand. There's less jargon, right? So when I say data, people feel that there's a lot of jargon when we say that we are trying to use machine learning or we're trying to use AI. I believe that if we are able to convey or communicate what exactly the stakeholder wants, right? Maybe the citizen want is a very simple summary of what the government is trying to do while introducing a law. Maybe the government want what the citizen exactly has to say and for what clause it has to say, right? So one of the major problems was people send a lot of recommendations. In those recommendations, there are a lot of grievances. There are a lot of soft stories of people trying to get attention from government, right? So eradicating that noise, understanding what exact laws are people referring to, and then providing that insight to the government. That is high quality data, right? And that is something that we actively work on, and we take ourselves very seriously on that amount of time.
And I think that also is there in the reporting that you do, right? Because one of the things is that you're probably observing patterns. You're not just looking at 5-point recommendations, you're also saying how much percentage, what it's doing. So, when data comes in that format, it's probably easier for you to analyze when it's large amount of data sets. And, as you have grown, you're probably doing it across multiple states, not just central government, multiple languages, and thereby using. And I like the example you gave about, getting volunteers. And this is I'm sure, Shahid will have something to share there as well. And I mean, I am struggling with that. I run an organization. I have young people who send me AI reports, and I'm like, boss, I don't know what this means. Like, I'm not really sure this is what the data is saying. So, yeah, I mean, there is definitely the aspect of, all of us learning to deal with, I mean, today emails come to you and you're not sure whether the person wrote it or somebody else prompted it. And you're like, okay, this is a very happy looking email. And I don't know whether you've seen it, gives you a happy quotient as well. The mood is on the email. And these are not things which, these are great things to be, tickled about, but in the sector, we're a little bit more worried about, what is it? Because it's also about reporting. And I think that is something which I think both Shahid and Aarti should also talk about is how do you think this, tech has helped one, keep a check on the reporting that you're doing, that is internally and for donors. I mean, I'm first internally and then for donors and stakeholders. And Shahid, especially in your case, have you been able to use that kind of data set, like whatever you're getting, like maybe the number of applicants you have or type of programs they get into? I'm not sure you have done an impact report yet, but have you been able to present some of that in some format? And if so, what are the lessons you learned as you were putting data together?
So yeah, I'd love to go for the second question first. I think so we recently had some of our batches finish their first cohort, so they finished the exams and now we have results and stuff. And how we do I can give you like a brief on what are the stages where we take data from them. So all of the So all of the students attend mock tests, which are hosted on our platform. So we get data on when they went and attended the mock test, what's like the present rate, how many students did not attend, all that. So we have mock tests regularly from start to the end of the program, and we categorize them into baseline, midline, and endline to see how they're progressing. And this particularly is assessing how their academic performance is going up. And during the same duration, we have their mentors rating them on three things. One, their communication skills, their willingness to open up, and then they do a self-reporting on how confident they are about their career. Now, these are basically all the data that we collect front end that we are right now we present to our donors. So right now we use all of this data to tell that, say, student A who came into the program has improved this much over the tenure of the course in academics, plus other than academics. So we have found students who, after the whole program, they're not extremely interested to pursue that. They want to try something else now. So that's something that happens with the age as well. So now all of these students are also getting a lot of training by their interaction with the mentors in their soft skills. So over the course of these 6 months, how much are the mentors rating them? Every interaction, they rate them on a scale of 5. How is their how good are they communicating compared to last month, and how are they opening up? Willingness to open up is important, especially with these kind of students. So these are data points that we collect, and all of these are so combined, and we give scores, and everything is put across in a table. We have like a pivot table. So simple Excel sheet. We do all of these, and we do simple Excel calculation. And now we have this dashboard that shows a donor, or we recently presented it to the India Welfare Trust recently, and how it helped so that we could directly show that, okay, so this is when we started the program, this is the kind of academic improvement they have, this is the kind of soft skill improvements they have. Now this many students attended this much sessions, this much students attended this much, this is the percentage rate of completion we have, and all of that. Now all of this are simple. We do not use any complicated softwares or tools also. I think that is also something people should be aware. Using tech does not mean that we build out an Excel on our own or anything. We use our own Excel. All of the mentor reported things for our CAT batches through a Telegram bot we have. But some of our batches, we still do all of the feedbacks on Google Forms, and it just links to Google Sheets. The government loves Google Sheets. There is no point in us complicating and giving them another way of seeing data. So in our case, yeah, a lot of these data has helped us, ensuring that the stakeholders are confident in the work we do. Even for so we did a pilot project in Tamil Nadu last year. Now this year we have a large scale activity going there, and the meeting where we reviewed all our impact, we presented them all of this data, and all of this were in pretty good, neat condition, because all of them are real time and picked and things like that. That primarily, I forgot the first question,
That's
actually.
fine. I think you then covered it. No, I think just to follow up on what you're saying, right? One is, of course, that it's convenient. And you said it very nicely that you don't really have tech does not really mean complex. Like all of us need
Yeah,
it's
it's
reporting. So
simplest.
learning that very simple stuff, and then putting it together, and even the visualizations. I mean, and I agree with you, Excel. I've probably learned to use many things, but hands down, we all still use Excel and Google
Yeah,
Forms. I mean,
the
they
whole
all
world runs on Excel still.
Yes, yes. And that's simple, right? I think a lot of time people have come back and said, "Can you present it simply?" Yeah, I mean, Aarti, the question again, what I was asking Shahid and Atharva earlier, and similar to you, you have seen probably a lot more of these sector founders, right, in their journeys, and also transition from being very small organizations to probably, start, scale, and other stuff. When you've seen them do that, where do you think they like you said, like fall off the wagon, or at least get misled or astray on the tech journey? That maybe they start, there's an intention, but what are those pitfalls, if you can put that out as warning signs? Because there are people in the room who probably are saying, okay, now I want to do tech, but you could probably say that these are warning signs, like don't do this, or be careful about this, like he said, right? No, don't write a job description and go get a techie first, or don't go get a developer first, like see what you want. The question I get faced with, I mean, and in the cohort we keep getting asked, is a lot of our founders may not even know what to do. Like they're like, what is the first question I should ask? I don't even know the first question to ask. Like, and then you said that early, that that hand-holding, capacity building, that okay, do a training program, but also sit with them and say, oh, this is what is to be done. So a little bit more hands-on. So do you want to point out to saying, these are things you should be careful about, these are things you can, do for sure with confidence, and you really need to do it. So If you have any examples from that data set that you've seen or your own experience at this work.
Sure. So I'll share a couple of examples particularly, I think that will be, setting a context here. So one is, for example, when we collect data, a lot of organizations do find it comfortable having a simple Google form, which feeds the data back into your Excel sheet. Brilliant, idea is great. Now, up till here, you are kind of running point, collecting the data. You are closer to understanding, has it been correctly entered? And then there are times, people, now if you keep it super simple where you just run visualizations on it, the interpretation of that visualization, it's up to you, because you are, as a community person, have a much more deeper hold of why a pattern is seen in the data, right? This cannot be system-based interpretation, because the tech, like I said earlier, it's an enabler. It's still a means in certain cases like this. So it's very critical that you play an important role of the mentor of that tech. So you need to guide the tech, which kind of cross-sectional data to look at, what is the longitudinal data to pick up, which variables I need to prioritize to come to an analysis of this is the pattern to see, or this is the pattern which is not appropriate. So those combination and that decision making must be held by the human in this whole loop. So I personally, when we hear this, the term as human in the loop, and today now we hear it very often. I feel it should always be tech in the loop. It's meant for the humans. It's the other way around, unfortunately, is being kind of addressed in the sector. But the larger point is you be the one to kind of drive that and take the decisions around it. So don't let the tech decide it for you to put together a quick report. Second thing, common mistakes which we do cover now, particularly come across is ChatGPT being heavily used. A lot of people put in their data. The data is interpreted. You need to go back to that and see, is the interpretation appropriate or not? Did it use the right methodology or not? Are you looking at it from what is it that you really had intention to collect the data? Is this really kind of driving that or not? These are the areas where I think, you need to see technology as the assistant or the intern for you, but you are the one who needs to guide it. Now, this is something almost often people keep that in mind, but it gets very practically difficult, particularly when, let's say, you're a small organization. Language is a huge barrier. You just don't know. And ChatGPT never says, I don't know, or it'll never tell you that,
Yeah.
local, it'll always give you some interpretation.
Some solution.
Somebody who doesn't know the language, how are you kind of decoding that?
Yeah.
Are you able to make sense of it, that is this accurate or not? The second catch is sometimes when you give this part of work, let's say, to somebody who can write a proposal or a report for you, who knows English, who understands the groundwork for you. It's important also for them to have a completely translated understanding of how they need to use the tech based on your understanding. So this is a little bit of an effort which I think organizations need to put to make sure that the tech is really serving you and not going against you. Right? And alongside that, I think broadly, see, every day we do have different kinds of tech as some way we are engaging. Simple things like social media. Most of us will have a business account. Go back and look in what are the kind of impressions. Even that's element of tech. Is this really making a difference to you? What are the kind of observations you pick up from there? Can you take that data back? So don't see it from an isolated M&E report or my financial budget or something else, whichever tech format you use. Try to have a very holistic view as an organization, because tech can enable in multiple areas, but it still enables in silos. It's you who need to thread all those various pieces together. So if you have achieved a certain kind of a growth or a certain kind of an impact outcome, and you want to demonstrate that, can the social media observations, is this social media the right place? Is it a report format the right place? How do you disseminate that knowledge to build a visibility? So larger point being, bringing your M&E, marketing and communications, every element, you need to tie the larger picture and keep a very close eye of how tech is reading what you are asking it to do. Don't lose sight of that. And that's where it's important you pick up tools where language, multilingual formats are kind of available so that the message doesn't go astray at all.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, right? Because that interpretation is a lot of language bases. And you also said it very nicely that, the founder has to take some interest in seeing and piecing it together. We see that with a lot of data, right? When you try this today. So yeah, as much as I think we're in a world where a lot of tech dominance is going to be around, and you said it very nicely, tech should be your intern, right? But whereas we see a lot of people saying that, okay, I want to get a fractional technology officer, CTO, to take charge of my tech. I mean, I've been mentoring officers that, and I'm like, why do you need a fractional CTO? You just need someone to, and Shahid smiling, you just need someone to probably just look at interpret data. I just go to one of the IITs and hire one of those young kids. They will do it excitedly for you, right? Versus, so you're also getting overwhelmed with this being, a large piece of your work. Well, not, right? I mean, people are going to anyway market. So tech is also being marketed as a solution. So tech is the thing to do, so, and tech is the primary thing. And we've not used the word AI here, but the theme for the panel was also that, well, let's look at AI because that's coming in. But because we are in the nonprofits group ecosystem, we're saying that we still focus on what you're doing and how you're doing it. And there's no need to be overwhelmed about it. You said overwhelming earlier on. So, I want to ask both these guys, young guys here who are probably working on tech, saying that if you had to give one piece of advice to founders who are listening in, irrespective of the age they are, irrespective of how much they understand tech, how should they approach it? Like how you've done it, but are there some mistakes you made and lessons, and think based on that, if Atharva, you think I would have not done this, or I should not have done this, and you want to say that when you're looking at tech, whether it is for monitoring and evaluation, whether it's for communication, whether it's for operational efficiency, what are one or two of those things that you think you should not have done, or you would have done better had you known not to do it? Yeah, Atharva, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of things that I wish I knew before I started the CSO journey with tech. Right. The first thing is we need to have a long-term horizon and a vision with tech. Right. So I understand that tech solves our immediate needs, and we look at evaluation and stuff like that for an certain shorter time period. Right. But when I say open source and all these things together, right, open source AI models, open source tools, and stuff like that, we're looking at a horizon of maybe 5 and 10 years, right? So we need to understand what we need to achieve via tech in the next 10 years. And second thing is it's an iterative building process. So there's no perfect solution on day 10 or day 1000 or day 10,000, right? So what are we trying to build? It's an iterative process, and we need to understand, we need to phase out the development processes. So while I was working in corporate, we used to have a longer timelines on understanding and building tech, right? So we used to have a 6-month kind of in sprints. We had an agile methodology of building it and stuff like that, right? But here in CSOs, what I've realized is that we need to understand tech needs to be fast. So if you can give a product in the hands of the beneficiaries in the first week, you can understand what are the problems, what you need to build next and stuff like that, right? So you iterate better in these processes, right? So this is about how the challenges that I faced and that I've tried to understand and build on. And the second thing on understanding how the evaluation part, right? So every solution that we try to build, we need to understand. At Civis, we basically have a metrics. We list down all the things that we need to achieve by the solution, right? And when we build a proof of concept, we need to understand how these things are going to be achieved using these workflows that we're trying to build. And is there a better way? Once the POC is built, is there a better way to do this for more efficiency and scale? So when I talk about AI as well, so that has been our approach. So we have looked at building proof of concepts via proprietary models from OpenAI or Claude and all these things together. So that helps us build things faster because they have their APIs, they have their agents and stuff like that already in place. Right? Once we have achieved that certain solutions can be built or we can get the effectiveness that we wish to achieve from the AI solution, then we move to looking at open source, different open source models and understand what data needs to be taken on. Do we need to fine tune the model, or a simple prompt engineering can help achieve things, right? So all these evaluations help us understand what exactly we need to build when we start building the full-fledged products. But we treat the proof of concept as a tool that helps us deliver fast, reiterate fast, and basically help us understand if the evaluations and if all the things that we wanted to achieve are being achieved or are being met using the solution that we're trying to build.
Yeah, so I think this is very important, right? Because a lot of times when young organizations or new organizations are trying tech, they want to get a perfect solution, or like, okay, what is the best way to do it, right? Recently I was speaking to someone and they said they want to develop an app for something. And I'm like, what is the purpose of the app? Is it for reporting? Is it for showcasing? Is it for internal monitoring? And then they came back and said, can you give a set of indicators to track? And I'm like, wait, for that first, a few steps back, right? I mean, app is not the first thing that you do. You first build an M&D platform, or you build a reporting network, a framework, think of a structure, and app is the last thing that happens. But here, the mandate was that there is money to build an app and it has to be finished by 31st March. So can you build it out? This is normal. This happens very often. You're like, I really don't know if I'm the person. Then you go to a techie who will say, okay, which person, what questions to ask, what frequency, what data set, and then it's a drop-down menu. And then after a year, this organization, I know them a while back, they came back and said, oh, none of that worked. So I'm like, okay, now let me tell you what I was telling you earlier. Let's just start. Like, what Aarti was saying earlier. Let's say, what do you want to capture this data for? Is there a value to this data set, right? Because I think that's what you're saying, Atharva, that, corporate, the beauty of making, but here is like, get it done. Like, this consultation, can you draw me a summary first before you say that it's perfection or not? I think, Shahid, you have also experienced this, right? So any
Yeah.
quick anecdote on that, where it's like, just get this done and stop worrying about it being perfect?
I think us founders as itself, we primarily personally itself, we feel like, yeah, we need to build like an end-to-end solution. We don't want to use anything third party. We want to do everything proprietary and all of that. And I think it's especially when you're very fresh or building your first product, you feel like, yeah, all of this I have to do myself. If I'm using an LMS, it has to be Opengrad's LMS itself. I think these are common things that all founders will go through. I think they'll all face these thoughts that whether we should, and I think in most cases you will be better off using third-party solutions or open source tools if they exist. The first thing I think what we did wrong was just Googling and figuring out what are existing products out there is not enough. You actually need to go out there and talk to people. I think if you Google and see, okay, you want to build out something, and I'm just like Googling and seeing, okay, LMS for all that. And I'll be like, oh, it's not there. Maybe I'm the first one building it. That's not the case always. You have to go out there and talk. If nobody's built it, there's probably solid 100 reasons why they've not done it. It's not anything people have not thought about, or none of the ideas.
Saying that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
A
So
lot of the sector does not have the humility to think. There's a lot of this thing that I'm doing it first. No, boss, you're not the only smart person to roam this earth. Other people have done it before, and if they have not done, like Shahid said, they have probably done it for a reason. So I think understand. So you're also saying tech and all that great, but go meet other people. That's what we're saying.
yeah. What I'm saying is, for us, what helped with navigating tech is basically just speaking to people who have done it. People have built large scale tech platforms. People have built communities. So we went and spoke to both the areas. So we feel like we're a merge of core communities and core learning management platforms. So we spoke to people who are running proper edtech platforms, who built it from ground up, using open source models, build their own open source LMS and things like that. We also went and spoke to people who run communities inside college, communities dealing with tech graduates, communities dealing with management graduates. We kind of figured out, okay, this and this. And these tech community leaders actually give us a lot of insight on how we should approach this, prioritizing, building a smaller, leaner version where we spend the least amount of time developing it. And I think as founders also, it helps to learn. I think it's not tough to learn the fundamentals of tech. I understand it might be a little scary because you're like, yeah, a lot of these code and all that. But I think underlying working even of like all of these complex GPT, even the chat GPT, you can take out a YouTube video and then like make sense out of it. If you're not able to do it, Google has this tool called Google Notebook LLM. So you just put that YouTube video into that tool. Now you can ask it questions. So I think it helps to learn and it helps to talk to people. I think the primary problem that will come if you don't learn even the fundamentals is that you'll think that things are very complex and you'll think that things take a lot of time, which is not the case in 90% of the cases. This is what happens with your social media marketing people, your video editing people, all those people. You'll feel like these are complex things, these take so much time. But the moment you scratch the surface and you try to understand what are like the steps involved, it's not that tough. Maybe it's not what I can do, but it's still not as tough as they're making it seem like. So That I think are two things: talk to people and try to learn a little bit.
And I think you said it so nicely. It's so important that, I mean, all kinds of, I mean, as technology, as things are coming in, it's important to be not just aware, to put an attempt to learn. I mean, that also says openness and risk taking as founders, right? I mean, so we're talking about entrepreneurial ecosystem, whether for profit or non-profit, you have to, and for the beneficiary, for your team, you have to learn. At least, if not learn to use it, at least be exposed to it so that you can then ask questions when you get vendors on board, or when you have to get somebody, you have to pay someone to do this, right? You need to even know why, because I've been having a conversation with someone yesterday who said, oh, if I can get a complete dashboard, why not I just go for it? And then I'm like, great. I mean, you want to spend 6 lakhs or 10 lakhs on it, but do you really want it? And then what is the purpose? Like, no, because everybody's doing it, so I think I should do it, So that's also another piece of warning that comes in, and warning signs that are there. We're at the fag end of this conversation. I can see that there are just 2 unanswered questions. I think, Ramesh, did you leave them for us? These 2
Yes.
questions which are hanging here. All right. So I'm going to just read out the questions and you can choose who wants to answer. The first one is, Uday is asking, we're a social enterprise and our work involves data for decision making. How can we automate the process of decision making at large scale? Any of you wants to answer that? How can we automate decision-making data? So they do data for this. Uday, if you are on the call, do you want to unmute yourself and ask? Is Uday on the call or is he left?
He can raise the hand. I will allow him to talk.
Uday, are you here? I don't know. But does one of you want to try? That is, what is this? He says we use data for decision-making. Their work is data for decision-making. They want to see how to make it at scale. Any suggestions? I mean, I couldn't think of anything. Yeah, Shahid, you want to try? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think data for decision making, I think if it's particularly a social enterprise, I think before you let the AI models or anything take decisions, I think you need to probably build your own data set. I think that would be the right step. I'm sure you guys would be doing all of this if you're a tech company and all that. But I think the key here would be, if I'm answering it right, all of the data sets, all of the AI models that exist right now are very Western data taught and learned. So if you're building something in the social sector space and it involves the model taking decisions, I think it would be worthwhile to build your own data set and try like making a mock such that then you try to train your model on top of that. I think right away going and using any existing tools might be a little problematic here, because particularly it might be sensitive or very contextual data that you're dealing with.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's pretty relevant, that it makes sense to first look at it yourself and not use an existing platform. The second question for Mona. You want to say something? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to kind of add to what Shahid just said. A little word of caution, given some kind of context we have in the past. See, sometimes it's not necessary the data that you used to make a certain decision. When you look at scale, it'll work. It's super critical to keep that eye, because it's not necessary that everything on that scale may really kind of lead to the conclusions that you want to make. Plus here, I don't know what is the context of data on the decision making. It's also important, keeping in mind the diversity of data. That will also determine whether it's really meant to be scaled or not. So that's another area of caution. Just want to call it out.
Yeah, no, and I think these are important warning signs, right? Like, because instead of saying automated and put at scale, they're talking about automating it. And I think Shahid also said the same thing, that automate, but then what? I mean, is it, for example, in your case, is it dropping off a particular kind of student? If seen, then that's because you still have to do a case by case and at least evaluate. I mean, you might have an early stage filter, but you may not take into account many other socioeconomic variables.
Absolutely.
Right. So, for example, in Civis's case, if there's data that's coming in, so, oh, this is irrelevant because there's too much of top stories there, but maybe there's a relevant point which could then become an opening case for your, note to the government saying, in this place, in this region, this is an incidence of something, right? So if the query says no, just drop it off. Like if it uses emotional words, drop. So yeah, I think I understand that piece. That's pretty well put. The second question, and we'll close with this, is from Mona, and she's asking is, for internal processes and M&D, how does a nonprofit founder go about building it? Where do you start? Who should be your tech partner and what type of tech? I think we've answered this, but anybody wants to try this again? Like, yeah.
I could take that, Archana. So this is exactly what we are trying to address also through the India Partner Network platform. See, one of the areas, I mean, this as a capability, it's still not there. The platform is about a year and a half, and we are also collecting information based on how people are looking at problems. And accordingly, we bring it out on the platform for people to use. But to specifically address if you are looking to build an M&E capability within your organization. So we have created, so there are two types. One is there are different types of capability building, assessment, self-diagnostic toolkits, I would say. All sizes you will find. I mean, some of them are like, very high level, gives you a direction. Some could be much more deep dive. You'll need to spend 2 hours, think through it and respond. Each of them have their merit. So I'm not going to say which is better in the cases. But one of the things that we are trying to do is, one, giving the first 0 to 1 journey of knowing what your capability gaps are. Not everybody can make time to go through a full-fledged assessment, but sometimes you need to just get started. And I strongly believe getting started is the best way to make a progress, because you will fall through pitfalls irrespective. So when you get started, the platform gives you an opportunity where M&E assessment can be built. I'll share the link with you, or maybe Ramesh, you could share that on the platform here in the chat. But there is a feature called assessment, which is specifically dedicated for M&E. If you take that, it will give you a sense of who are the right kind of service providers. And I want to just call out Archana 86B is one of their listed. Alongside that, it also gives you an opportunity to just connect with one subject matter expert. See, sometimes you might have just one-off question to get addressed, and you really don't want to contact somebody and get into a proper agreement. So just getting those doubts clarified, that is also an opportunity platform provides. And over and above, you can always write to us, and we'll put you through the right kind of additional set of people to build the tech side of that capability as well.
So thank you for saying that, because I think that's exactly what we do at NSRCEL, right? So one of the things we are trying to create an incubation platform, and thanks to people like Atharva and Shahid, who also lend their time to our ventures, is sometimes helping them navigate that early stage questions. So I think, I wish I could say this is the best thing to do. No, we can't, because it depends a lot more. We can tell you these are the options. You still have to experiment. But some of these processes still require you to, like you said, go through the first checklist, or, get it done. Like you said, for us, when I work with clients, we do a pre-engagement checklist. We say, let's just see what you have first before you start saying this is what I want. Like, maybe what you have is good enough for me to build out something for you first, without, all of us struggling on this journey. So it's important to invest. I think that's what we're learning. And I mean, just to close the loop and hand it back to Ramesh, I think we are doing that. That's the reason why we're having this conversation, that, NSRCEL is trying to do that. And we've never done that alone. We've done that with partners. I mean, Sattva has been a partner for a very, very long time, and, across the ecosystem in many, many ways that you've helped us. All our founders, all our partners and people who have worked with us over the last many years, all of them continue to engage with us. So one of the interesting aspects of being in our incubation system, and I can say that with a lot of confidence because I've worked in other ecosystems, is that you have a very, very supportive enterprise network here. Like, you can call out to anyone you want, and the team will connect. Okay, you know what? This is the person you can talk to, and people listen in. So use that. Otherwise, entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey. You don't know where to go. Tech is is a monster in the room. I don't know which part of it to touch first. Where do I start? No, I mean, those are easy problems to deal with if you've decided, right? So I think, thank you all for, for taking time and extra time yesterday and today to talk to us, and giving us the context and confidence to do this. I'm hoping that everybody who listened in, and when this goes up on social media and YouTube channels, we will definitely send you the link, but we'll be able to share it and other people look at it. You can reach out to everybody on this platform that you see. You can reach out to Atharva, you can reach out to Shahid, I'm sure, reach out to them on LinkedIn and drop them a note saying this is what you want. Aarti's been always there, so she will help whatever connection there is. And we are here, right, at NSRCEL. Thank you for this lovely conversation on this Friday evening, and for taking the time out and for making things so nice to hear, and say there's a lot of hope in the tech space as well. Back to you, Ramesh, to close this.
Yeah, ma'am. Even if ma'am have said thank yous, I would like to thank again, first of all the panelists for taking their time. It has been a wonderful session. I hope the ventures who have joined in have gained whatever the questions they had, they would have a little bit clarity now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and giving us this 1.5 to 2 hours. Thank you to all the attendees that attended today. Thank you, everyone. I would be closing the webinar now. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
all.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.